All right, well, it's been a long while, and I'm sorry about that for everybody who was looking for the tutorial on how to play Star Trek Fleet Captain. So here it is. The setup has been changed a little bit. If you want to know how to set up, you can look at my first video that I did about the setup, because as you can tell, I cut it in half. The reason is because I wanted some space, because that table is not that big. But the board will be a little bit longer, and you can look at the setup video to know how to set up all this. I'm just going to go through the rules overview right now. So that's going to be fine the way it is now. So again, to repeat what I've said before, Starfleet Keep Titan is a game of miniatures, but also of card game. There's a lot of cards. It's not card driven, but it's a lot of cards where you can use during your game to help you with getting ahead. But you're going to be moving over the board, and you're going to try to, succeed at some missions that you have, and those missions will give you some VP. Like you have 1 VP, 3 VP. This is a secret mission, which gives you 2 VPs. So once you get to a certain number of VP determined at the beginning of the game by both players. So in this case, we're doing a 10 VP game, which is also, remember, the size of the fleet, which is comprised of the Excelsior, for example, Reliant, Voyager, and Enterprise, which are right here. Once you get to 10 VP in this game, then the first 1 to 10 VP will win the game. So how do you play? Well, during your turn, you can do one of several actions, like a lot of the games, right? One of the things you can do is move. All right, I will go through what you can do, and I'll go in detail about how you do it. But moving is one of your action, and you can move each of your ships. So if you have 4 ships, you can move all 4 ships, and that's one of the things you can do. You can also make 1 power adjustment. So I've explained that in the setup video, but every ship, it's a click miniature, so there is a click in the bottom there. Hopefully it can... if you can see it, of course it doesn't want to, but there is a click right here, which represents your systems. All right, this one has, for example, 7 weapon. The sensors are disabled, that's why you see a D, and also he has 9 for his engine and 7 for his shield. This is also represented on your card. So if I take the SX here, if you look at the first line, that's what I put it at, you can see it here. 7 to the weapon, sensors disabled, 9 engine, 7 shield. So you pick one of those before your turn, before you start your turn. Alright, so that's what you can do, make a power adjustment and move so far. You can take 3 actions, which represents by those, where are they? Tokens right here. And you can take up to 3 actions, but you can only take 1 action per ship. So if you had 4 ships, only 3 ships are going to take an action. But not 1 ship cannot take 2 actions. It's going to be 1 action per ship, and maximum of 3 actions. So you will simply take an action with a ship and put the counter on the ship, and when you get all 3 counters placed, then you're good to go. Your actions are done. That's what you can do, and then we'll go up what actions are those. You can play a command card, so you're going to start with 4 command cards in your hand, and you can simply play one. So how do you play the cards? Simply, some cards are crew cards, like Data right here. So because he's a crew, you can install him in one of your ship. So you pick a ship, any one, and you decide to say, okay, so Data is going to go in the Voyager or Enterprise, whatever. And what it does is it gives a special bonus to the ship. For example, here Data is an officer, and he gives a +3 to sensors. And also, if the ship is destroyed, you may trash Data to prevent all the damage that would have destroyed that ship. That's pretty cool. So once you trash a card, you put it in the trash right here, and this card is gone from the game. If you discard it, you just discard it on the side, and later on, maybe you'll get it back again. So that's how you play crew cards on the ship, and you can only have 1 of each crew type, and I'll go through the crew type later on. Once you play a command card, you right away pick another one, so you always have 4 in your hand. You can also discard a mission, so if a mission card you don't like it, so it's something you're not going to be able to do, it's too hard, or it's too you know, it's not something that goes with your strategy. Just discard it and then pick another one and put it there. You can do only one discard mission per turn. You can also discard a command card. So if you have a command cards here, but you know, you have a, let's say, a combat command cards, and you're not ready to combat, or you're not going to do any combat anytime soon, so that's kind of, you know, it's in your hand for nothing, then discard it and just pick another one. Only one again. So that's pretty much what you can do during your turn. So let's go back to the movement and see how that works. So movement works by looking at your engine. For example, the Voyager here, it's a pretty fast ship, has an engine of 10. Alright, so it's right there. Even if you can see it, trust me, it's 10. So engine of 10 means he has 10 movement points. And the way you move, it always takes one movement point to enter a new tile, or to, I would say, move out of your tile, your current tile, into a new one. Okay, so it's always one movement point, regardless of the tile. Once you get into a tile that hasn't been unexplored, which the upside down, then you simply turn it over and you look what it is. For example, this is a M-type star. There's no special writing, so you don't have to worry about that. Then what you do before you can move on, let's say you want to keep on going, the first thing you have to do is look at the encounter here, and the number 1 through 4, it's because you have to roll a die, and on a roll of 1 through 4, you will have to pick an encounter card. So simply roll your die, and let's say it's a 1, then you will go there, take an encounter, and you will simply do what the encounter says to do. Now, regardless if you're able to you know, successfully complete what the encounter says, and you get some victory points sometimes you don't, but whatever the encounter says, it doesn't matter if you were successful or not, you're still going to end your movement, because every time you draw an encounter card, your movement stops, regardless of how much movement you have left. So right now, the Voyager at 10, he moved the 1, he has 9 left, but even with 9 left, there's nothing he can do. Now let's go back and say that this was already, you know, there's a few places that were already turned and discovered, like this. You could, and let's say you were here. So again, it cost only 1 to move out. So 1 movement to move out of your space to a new space. But now if you want to keep going, let's say you don't want to stay here, but you want to explore this space here. Now you look at the size of the space. In this case, the size is 8, right? So it will cost you 8 movement to cross this space and go on the next one. Now the Voyager at 10 minus 1, because he moved out of his space to a new one, that's 9 left. Because he has 9 left, he can actually use those 9 minus those 8 to move here. Now he has only 1 movement left, so it's probably they will not be able to move more than that. And then again, you will go ahead and reveal what this card is and do whatever it says. So once a card has been discovered, you don't have to, once you go here, look at the encounter. You only look at the encounter when it's an unexplored space that you just turned. Then you do the encounter. You can as rule it, like I do sometimes, where every time you go into a new space, you have to roll for the encounter. So you can go through that huge deck of encounters and have more adventure this way. But, you know, the rules is, if it's a new tile, you do the encounter. If it's not a new tile, if it's an explored tile already, you just keep on moving if you want to, or just stop. And you do that with all your ships. So this ship moved. Now you can decide to do other action with the ship, or you can move the other ones. Okay, and then finally do an action with that ship. But what you have to understand is, once you move the ship, so let's say I will move him, the Voyager, from here to here, I cannot say, well, now I'm going to move this one here, and then I'll move the Voyager later on here. No, you can't do that. You know, once you move another ship, then the ship you just moved, movement is done. If you have an encounter card, the movement is done. If you're in a space where there is enemy ships, your movement is done. If you take another action with one of the other ship, but you haven't finished moving, your movement is done. So you need to move completely your ship, at least one of them, before you can you can do something else. But you don't have to move all of them before taking action. You can move this one, then take an action with this one, and then you could move this one and then take an action with this one and then go back to this one and take an action with that one. So the movement and the action are different things, but you have to be able to move entirely one of the ship until the end before you can go on and move or do another action or another move from another ship. If you don't, it's going to stop your movement. I hope that's clear. I don't know if it was clear, but you know. Anyway, the other thing, like I said, you can do is make your power adjustment. We talked about that, and you can only do one. So let's say you wanted to move, but before you move, you wanted to put more engine to the power, more power to the engine. Then you could do that, you know, power adjustment now and then move after. Okay, or you could move, and when you're there, you know, decide to, okay, I'm not going to move anymore. Maybe enemy are going to come to me. I'm going to put my shield at the maximum. You could do that too, but you couldn't move, do a power adjustment, and move again. Okay, again, like I said, once you do anything else but a movement, your movement is finished. Just want to go back a little bit about the movement before we go further, because there's a few other things that can happen in movement. If you are starting your turn, but there is an actual enemy in your space and you want to move, you have to do what it's called a breakaway roll. The way it works is, before you can move on, you get a breakaway from your enemy, you will roll a die and you will add the size of your ship. Like, for example, here the Voyager is a size 3, so you will add 3 to the die roll, and you will compare that to your opponent's size plus die roll. You will do the same, and if you're equal or greater than his, then you can just move away and keep on moving. If the results is less than your opponent's results, then you can still move, keep moving, but your opponents will get a free action or a free attack with one of his ships. So if you had more than one ship, then again, if you had multiple ships it will be harder for you to break away. So you will add both sides of the ship and roll the die, and that will be the number. So it will be much harder for you to move away from those guys. But even if you did fail, you can still move, but only one of the two enemy ships can take an attack action, not both. And then they can, you know, have a free shot at you. All right. So let's say you wanted to move through here. Well, those tiles are not discovered yet. They would have to be, obviously, because if you don't. But let's say you were going here, and you know you have enough speed to go through. Well, if you want to go through the enemy ships now, because you didn't start on that tile, but you're passing through, you have to do an evasion roll. Okay, and the evasion roll is the same as a breakaway. You roll the die and you look at the opponent's, your size plus your roll of the die, his size plus his roll of the die, and now if you're equal or more, then it's fine. You can keep going. If it's less than the opponent, then your ship has to stop moving. But in this case, the opponent does not get a free attack. You just have to stop, and then you can go on with your turn, okay? And the opponent can always attack you on the next turn. So that's the difference. The breakaway is when you start where there's an enemy, and the enemy gets a free shot if you fail the test, but you can still move. The evasion roll, if you fail it, you stop moving. You stop where the enemy is. And if you are successful with the roll, then you keep going. That's the difference. The other thing, like I said, you can do is make your power adjustment. We talked about that, and you can only do one. So let's say you wanted to move, but before you move, you wanted to put more engine to the power, more power to the engine. Then you could do that, you know, power adjustment now and then move after. Okay, or you could move, and when you're there, you know, decide to, okay, I'm not going to move anymore. Maybe enemy are going to come to me. I'm going to put my shield at the maximum. You could do that too, but you couldn't move, do a power adjustment, and move again. Okay, again, like I said, once you do anything else but a movement, your movement is finished. The third thing we talk about is to take 3 actions. So what action can you take? Okay, one thing you can do is a system check. So some missions tells you have to, for example, this mission that I have right here, it says to make a successful level 30 sensor test in a nebula. All right, so what it means is simply you're going to look at the system that is required for that test, which in this case is sensor. Mine is 12, so I have a 12 already. So that's your action. You just, okay, I'm going to do a sensor test. So you take your action marker, you put it on your Voyager, let's say right here. So you know the Voyager is doing his action now, and when it's done, it won't be able to make another one. So you determine first, the rating you need. Well, you have 12 on your sensor, for example, in this example. Then you can play an ops card. So if you look at the cards we have, is the one with the green. So ops card gives you, this is an interrupt, but some of them give you, I don't know if you have any. Oh yeah, here, data, for example. You can play this card as a sensor test for +5 to sensor. Now remember, if that's a crew in your crew, then you'll have to remove it as a crew and play it as a card, as an ops card, but it will be out of your ship. Okay, you can't have it in your ship and play the ops card. It's either ops or crew or combat. You have to choose one of the three. In this case, you could say, okay, I'm going to use it as a sensor. You discard that card. You can only play one ops card per test, and then you're going to add a 5 to your sensor, so your sensor will be up to 17, and then your opponent can play also an ops card that's going to give you some negative number or something else. You can do that if he wants to. And then finally you're going to roll the die and you're going to add whatever the number is, and that's going to be your total sensor test. And if that's equal or more than the mission or whatever test you're doing, then you pass that test. Of course, a ship with a disabled sensors cannot do a test. That's obvious. So that's how the system test works. And there's different tests. You're going to see there's sensors, there's shield, the weapons, engine test, and so forth. Another action you can do, especially if you're the Klingon or the Romulan, if you have the expansion, is to do a cloak action. Now the only ship in the Starfleet that can do that is the Defiant, which I don't have. But let's say you were a Romulan and you wanted to do a cloak action. So you will take your cloak tokens that looks like this, and you have quite a few if you're the Klingon, but you have 2 cloak token that has a number, like cloak 1, 2 of them, right? Like this. And you have 2 cloak 2, 2 cloak 3, 2 cloak 4, and so forth, depending on how many ships you have. And then you also have some that says Echo. So the way it works is that let's say you decide to cloak, so you're right here and you say one of my action I want to cloak. So once you cloak, you remove your ship from the board, you put a cloak token, let's say this is cloak 1, so you put it there, and then you put the other cloak 1 on the card that corresponds to the ship you just moved, in this case the Excelsior. So on the Excelsior you will put the cloak 1. So now you know that the Excelsior cloak 1 is cloaked. Now obviously you won't put the cloak 1 visible. You will turn it around and it only says cloak, so nobody knows if that's the Excelsior. Obviously, once you cloak at first, people will know, well, they saw the Excelsior disappeared, so obviously in this game they will know that's the Excelsior. But on future turn, you can take an action, another cloak action, to add an Echo. Okay? And also you put him on the other side, which says cloak. Put him on the same space, right? And you take both of them and you kind of shuffle them, but you look at them, of course you want to know what they are, but you shuffle them and put them back, so now your opponent doesn't know which one is the Echo and which one is the actual ship. Now as you can see, those 2 are different colors because they came through the expansion, so you wouldn't want to do that. You would make sure that you get an Echo that came with the same guy. It's much better, so you have to be careful. Some of the tokens are a little bit different, but normally they will be the same. So now you don't know which one is which. And this is the Echo, this is the cloak 1. You know, now that means that once you have a lot of ship cloaked in the game, it's going to be starting in a lot of Echo. It's going to be tough for you to remember which ship is what, okay? Because again, you can, once you move with the cloak ship, you can still move the same speed as your engine. So your opponent might kind of guess which ship you have if you start moving the exact number of engine of a ship, especially like the Voyager. Well, the Voyager won't cloak, but if you have a fast ship, your opponent will know that this cloak is probably the fast ship because you won't be able to move that fast. So you want to always try to move as fast as your slowest ship, if that makes any sense. So you kind of confuse your opponent because he's not sure now which ship it is, because every ship can always go as fast as the slowest one, if you know what I mean. And same thing with the Echo, all right? you can split your echo and your ships. So at one point, then you open another, has no clue where you are. But the movement is different. Is that if it's an explore space, you can move as long as you have engine from that specific ship. But if you move into a unexplored tile, you do not get to explore it. You just stop. You can only move one unexplored tile at a time. So if you want to move again next turn, you'll have to use one of your movement to only move one. Okay, that's the only thing about the cloaking that you have to be careful. The reason is because you don't know what is the size of this tile, so you're only going to get move one. But at least you can move without risking to get some tiles that are like, you know, the black hole, or tiles that are too big for you to move through, so you can still keep moving. So that's what you can do during your cloaking. You can only do a cloaking action. Okay, you can't target any ship, or any ship cannot target you because you're cloaked. Okay, there's no need of breakaway rolls or evasion rolls. So even if you get into a style where there is enemy, it doesn't matter. Of course, the enemy can take an action to scan your, you know, cloak to see if it's. So that's one of the action you can do also on your turn. If you're the enemy and there's a cloaking device, you can use a scan action, and I'm going to talk to that right after that. Let me just finish with the cloaking first. So the cloaking, you can only move, and nobody can really attack you. Nobody can, you know, there's no breakaway or anything like that you need to do. You can also, you're not also the target of any system test, any kind of system test, unless of course the scan action test, which we'll talk about it. And also, if you want to uncloak, you just need to remember, when you cloak, your ship's gonna have to be clicks to the cloaking. This ship doesn't have cloaking, right? But you'll see there's gonna be a blue column on each of the three different you know, damage sector here. Once you see the blue, and you can look at the setup video and explain that in more detail. But you'll put in one of the blue of the undamaged. If you're damaged, on the blue on the damage, and if you're really damaged, your red alert, then you will go the blue on the red alert. So you have to click your ship into that blue. To uncloak, you simply go back to one of the white, yellow, or red system clicks, and then you automatically decloak, which means you remove only the cloak 1 or cloak 2 or cloak 3 token, and not the echo. You leave the echo and you put your ship back. So the echo will keep on moving, and there's a reason why you keep the echo, because obviously you may have other ships cloaked, and that makes it even more complicated for other people to know which ship is cloaked and which one is not. Also, some special ability on Klingon's ships, and I'm sure Romulan have some ability too. It says that if you reveal a echo token in a space where there is enemy ships, you deal 1 damage to his ships, or I guess you have to roll a die and get some damage or something like that. So that's pretty interesting. But what about the other action that we talked about, which is the scan action? On your turn, let's say you wanted to move into this tile, but you would like to know what is in there. You know, you don't want to take a risk. Some tiles are okay, but sometimes, like the black hole, are pretty bad, because you're kind of stuck there unless you have a engine powerful enough to move away from the black hole. So what you can do in one of your turn is to do a scan action. You simply take a scan token for the Federation's blue, and on the other side you have the Klingon, and you will look at the tile yourself, so you can look what it is. If it's a tile you would like to move into, put it back upside down, and put your blue tokens on it, or your Federation token, or Klingon, whatever you are. And so now this is your scan action. That's one action you can do. That's part of your action that you'll do. Okay, so you can only do one, like we said, per ship. So in future turns, or in future, you know, in future, if you're moving around and this is still not explored, and you don't remember what it is, because there is a Federation token, the Federation player can always at any time look at the card, and just to remind himself what it is. Once you move on it, then you remove your token, turn the card over, and that's all you have to do, and the token is just discarded. You can also, in the same action, which is the scan action, if there is a cloak ship or a cloak token, you don't know if it's a ship, but if there's a cloak token on your space, you can use that scan action to scan for cloak ship, and you have to do a sensor test of 15 or more. And if you do, then the player with the cloak is going to have to reveal if it's an echo, removes it from the board, and nothing happens. And if it's a ship, if it's an actual cloak ship, then that specific ship has to uncloak and just appears in front of you. And now someone is in trouble. And that was the scan action. Another action you can do on any tile you want is to take a influence action. So you take an influence token, which is a command token, really, with the Federation control or control token here. And you just put it in your space. Now, because you have a control token on that space, you control that space. Okay? If you were coming into that, let's say you're the Klingon and you come into a space where there is a Federation control token, you cannot put one of your control token. But what you can do is remove, for one action, the control token. And on later turns, for another action, you can put your command token. So one command token can be added or removed per action on the space, depending if it's your command token or not. If it's yours, obviously you will add one from the one that's already there. But if it's not yours, then you will just remove it. Okay? And the command token are important because they don't just help you exert influence into your location, so you'll be able to succeed at missions that ask you to have a certain amount of control over the space or whatever, but they also help you to build and expand installations. So the way it works is that in the game you have 3 different kind of installation. Let me get them for you, that you can build. Okay, and there is the outpost. On the other side of the outpost, the colony and the starbase. Okay, the way it works is for you to be able to build any of those, first of all, you need to be on a tile with an habitable planet. So that's to construct your first construction, which is your outpost. You will need right here, perfect, an habitable planet. So here it says habitable, and obviously it's a planet, you can tell, class D. Once you find a planet that's habitable, for one action you can exert some influence, put a control token, and on the next turn, because you already have one action token, you can now build an outpost. So you just simply leave the control token but add your outpost. So to get an outpost, you need to have at least one control token on the space. Okay, if you want to upgrade your outpost now, you simply need 2 control tokens. So you will need another action to add one more of your action token here, a control token, sorry. So now you have 2. And on the next turn, you'll be able to upgrade the outpost to a colony. And as you can tell, the outpost has a shield of 0 because in the game, an enemy can come and try to blow up your outpost, okay? Using, again, weapon tests against the shields test of the installation. In the case of a outpost is 0, colony is 15. And if you get another action, you'll put a 3rd command token. And once you have 3 command tokens in one space, for one action you can put a starbase. So you remove the colony, and now you have a starbase in this space. That's a shield of 30. So it takes quite a while to build a starbase, obviously. It actually takes 6 actions if you think about it. 1 action for 1 command token, another action to build an outpost, because you cannot just put 3 command tokens and then build a starbase. The only thing that you can build from scratch is an outpost, and from there you have to upgrade outpost to colony, colony to starbase. But to upgrade an outpost to a colony, you need 2 command tokens on the space. To upgrade a colony to a starbase, you need 3 command tokens. So it will take 6 actions, okay, for a starbase. And if we recap, it's 1 command token for 1 action, then 1 action to build an outpost, a 3rd action for a 2nd command token, a 4th action to upgrade the outpost to a colony, a 5th action to get your 3rd command token, and finally the 6th action to upgrade your colony to a starbase. Hopefully that makes sense. But trust me, once you start understanding it, it does. Some space though, like this one here, it says installation at this location require 2 additional control tokens to build. So that's a bad location to build, because instead of 1 command token to build an outpost, you'll need 3, because 2 additional, not just 2 additional on top of the 1. So 3 control tokens just to build an outpost. Okay, so instead of 2 for the colony, it's going to take you 4. And instead of 3 for the starbase, it takes you 5. So it's going to take you much longer in this space to create. So you want to be careful where you build your stuff. And the good things about starbase is that once you're in a space with a starbase, you can repair your ship, because the only way to repair a ship normally is on your command post. You'll have to come back all the way here and fix your ship. But if you have a starbase, that's yours, obviously. As you can tell, this starbase is the Federation, but there is other token for the Klingon and the Romulan if you have the expansion. Okay, so that's your influence action, they call it, okay, to either exert influence on the space, to control it, or to build or expand the installation. Another action you can do is reinforcement action. During the game, you will have ships being destroyed. And if one of your ships is destroyed, let's say, I don't know, the Excelsior is destroyed, well, you can still play with the 3 ships, right? Now, your size, instead of being 10, because you lost the Excelsiors, which was 3, your size right now will be 7. Because a ship has been destroyed, you bring your size, which was maximum of 10, by 1 point. So now you're at 11. Every time a ship gets destroyed, you add 1 to your total size for your fleet. So from 10, because a ship was destroyed, you get to be 11 now. But right now you only have 7 size because the Excelsior was destroyed. So for one action, what you can do is reinforce, or do a reinforcement action, which simply means you're going to get from your ship's deck, okay, this time you don't have to do like I explained in the setup. This is randomly in the beginning, but now you don't have to do randomly. You're going to just look at picking up a ship that will bring your size back to its maximum, which is 11 now, because one ship was destroyed. So instead of 10, you get 11. So 7 to 11 is 4. So you're able to pick one ship of size 4. You can only pick one ship per reinforcement action, right? So even if you wanted to pick those 2 ships, which is 3 and 1, you couldn't. It has to be only one ship. You don't have to get a ship that's 4, but you have the maximum size you can do is 4. Okay, so you could say, okay, well, here it is. I'm going to bring the USS Sutherland. So the Sutherland is right here. You get the card, you put it with your ship's card, and then you get the miniature and you put it on the fleet deployment zone, and that will be ready to move on the same turn, because your reinforcement action can be taken as a first action. Remember, you can take action in any order you choose, okay? And you don't have to take any of them. You choose the one you want to take, but you can take them in any action. So reinforcement will probably be the first action you do, so you can bring your ship here. And repair action is another action you can do, and we talked about that a little bit. So if you're in a star base, or you're next to a, you're in a space with a star base, your star base, by the way, of your faction, or if you're in a command post, then you can use an action to repair one of your ship. So you can either, turn the dial of your ship that was on yellow to white, from red to yellow, or you can remove some status token that can be on your ship. For example, I don't know if I have one here, but during the missions, during COD, they will tell you to disable your sensor, for example. You will take one of those little token here, and you put it on your ship, and as long as this token is on the ship, your ship is disabled. That comes through some command cards or some encounters and stuff like that. So for one repair action, you can either go from red alert to yellow on your ship, from yellow to white, or you can simply remove one of those tokens completely from your ship. That's what you can do with the repair action. And again, you can do it at the outpost, command post, not outpost, command post. Or you can do it if you have a starbase, your own starbase in your space. Oh, and one quick thing about repair. If you're at the command post, you can use also your movement action. If you haven't moved yet, let's say you started there, but your ship was somehow damaged, you can say, I'm not going to move this turn, I'm going to use that move to repair, to use as one repair action. So you can do two repair action if you're on the command post. One, instead of moving, you repair, and the second one, you use your actual repair action to do it. Okay? Another cool action you can do on your turn is a transporter action. So if you are in the same space than another ship of yours, you could use that action to simply transfer cargo from one ship to the other, or transfer a crew member from one ship to the other. So that's what you can do. You don't have to roll anything, you just do it if you're in the same space with one of your friendly ships. But if you're in space with an enemy, you can also do a transport action. For example, you could do that because you wanted to force the enemy to remove one of his crew cards from his ship and discard it. You will use a transport action to do that. If the ship had a prisoner from your crew, one of your crew as a prisoner, you could do a transport action to get that crew, that prisoner, back to your ship and use it on your ship. You could also use the transporter action to move a cargo, a precious cargo that that ship has and you want it. Maybe it gives you VPs, then you use the transporter action to do that. Or if you have cargo that you do not want, like the tribbles, then you will send it to that ship with the transport action, and now that ship would have that cargo. But because it's an enemy, it's not going to let you transport stuff into his ship. In this case, because it's not friendly, it's an enemy, you have to do a sensor test against a shields test. So you know, we've talked about the test. You look at your sensor number from that ship. You add any ops card you want to play, only one, and then you roll a die. This enemy will look at his shield number. He can also play an ops card, and he's going to roll a die. And if the number is equal or greater, then the transporter action worked, and you can now transport either from this ship to this ship or from this ship to this ship. So that's how the transporter action works. And again, you can force the opponent to discard a crew card that was assigned to that ship. You can take one crew card from an enemy ship and place it in your ship as a prisoner. That's also what you can do. I didn't mention that. You can also take one piece of cargo or a prisoner from one ship to the other, and so forth. So that's what you can do. Also, with the same transporter action, you could, if the submission asks for it, if you're on a planet, you can use it to beam down an OA team. So you have counters again with the OA team. Of course, it's upside down. The OA team, and of course, the other side is the Klingon. So you will take that counter and place it on the space with the planet, and now you have beamed down an OA team. And you can only do one action per turn, so you'll be able to beam down the OA team. And if the mission tells you to beam it down and bring back up, and then the mission will be completed, you will have to wait for another turn to use another transporter action to beam it back up to the ship. Anyway, of course, a good thing to do is if you have two ships in the space, one ship can use this action to beam it down, the other ship can do the action to bring it back up. You don't have to have the same ship doing the beam down, beam up, or beam down, and usually the mission tells you that. You don't need to have the same ship doing the same mission. Unless it tells you otherwise, then it's fine. You can do that. So that's your transporter action. So I just want to recap the actions you can do, and then you can always go back in the video if you want to listen to it a little bit more. Hopefully, it was detailed enough on some of them. I messed up some stuff. Hopefully, you'll give some comments if I did. But just to recap, you can do on your turn 3 actions, 1 per ship, to a maximum of 3. And again, the number of action you can do depends on how many, how much VP do you go through the game. For example, if it's 10 VP like we do, it's 3 actions. But I believe that if you go to 13 or 14 points, that you can add 1 more actions, which would be 4 action. If you go up to 16 points per game, then you can have a 5th action and so forth. I mean, the rulebook tells you that. But here we have 3 actions. So one of the actions you can do per ship is, to recap, the system tests, cloaking, combat, influence, reinforcement, repair, scan, and transporter. All right. We haven't talked about combat, so let's talk about that quickly. So combat works like this. Obviously, if you're together on the same space, and again, there's some special ability, some events, I believe, or cards, lets you attack from an adjacent space, but in general, you have to be in the same space. And the combat action, so you need to have an action available for your ship before you can obviously use the combat action, is work pretty much like it's really a test. It's like a system test using your weapons and shields, okay, depending if you're the attacker or the defender. In this case, let's say the Federation is attacking, the Klingons are defending, so the Federation player is going to use his one action for that ship to do a combat action. So what you want to do is make a weapon test. So again, you look at your weapon number, and you're going to be able to add a combat card, so you can be able to play one of your command card, but the one that says combat, right? That's the only one you can play during a combat, is the one that says combat, and you can only use obviously the combat ability. So this one only says you can use it if you're the target, so that won't work on this case. You would have to, because you're not the target, you're the attacker. But some of them gives you, like for example, this one gives you a +5 to weapons or shields, depending on if you're a defender or attacker or defender. So I could play this card and add 5 to my weapons. Then I roll my die, and then the enemy now does the same thing, but he's going to look at his shield, and he's going to also use a combat card if he wants to add, and then finally roll the die. And then now if the results is less or equal than the shield result, the attack fails, right? So the result has to be greater than the shield for you to be able to inflict damage to the ship, all right? Which makes sense. If you're the same than the shield, then nothing happened, right? But if you're greater than the shield, then you went through the shield and you hit the actual hull of the ship. So how does that work? Is the damage is that if you're able to inflict a result that's greater than the shield, you inflict 1 damage, the defender will have to click down to yellow alert if it was at undamaged, or red alert if he was at yellow alert. If he was at red alert and he get a damage, guess what? He's destroyed. But also, if you were able to do a test of your weapons that's twice as much as the shield of the defendant. So let's say you had a weapon test of 20 and the shield of the opponent was 10, then you will get 2 damage directly to the opponent. If you're able to do a weapons test that is 3 times the shield of your opponent, which is really tough, but it's possible, then again, there will be 3 damage to the opponent. That means you could possibly destroy an entire ship that's from non-damaged to destroyed in 1 turn. But remember, probably you can also during an attack have more than 1 ship. So if this is the case, all 3 ships can add their number to the attack. So as long as you have 3 actions left, 1 per ship, you'll be able to use those 3 actions for that will be the entire action turn. Those 3 actions to use 3 combat action, okay, and then you will add this weapons number, this weapon number, plus the weapons card if you have one, a combat card, plus your roll of the die, and that will be your total attack number. And then the enemy will have to do his thing. So of course, if you have more than 1 enemy, you know the enemy cannot add the shield together because you have to pick which enemy you want to attack. So if this was the case, that's a lot of people in one space. Even if you're going to attack with all 3, you have to decide you're going to attack this guy or this guy. You cannot say, well, I'm going to attack half of the weapons going to go to this guy and the other half to this guy. That's not the way it works. What you could do is says my 2 ships here are going to attack that guy and this ship's going to attack that guy. That you can, because again, you're using your 3 available actions. But if you only had 2 actions available, you couldn't attack with those 3. You'll have to pick which which of your ships is going to attack. And if one of those ships already did an action prior, maybe he did an action here and he moves here, he can't attack because his action is already done. Remember, it's very important. It's only one action per ship, to a maximum, in this case, in this game, a maximum of 3 actions. Hopefully that's clear with the combat. It's not that hard, combat, it's pretty straightforward. So that's the way the combat works, and damage happens if you play the Klingon. Just to talk about the command card a little bit more, we talked about the command card having 3 different aspects to it: crew, ops, and combat. Sorry. Also, if you play an ops card, which is the one with the blue, you can never play during a combat, right? So the ops only played, and it tells you pretty much when to play. This one says a sensor test, so you could play this card for his ops value or his ops ability during a sensor test. It tells you pretty much straightforward. The crew we talked about, it simply mean that you can put the card as a crew member on the ship. And combat, again, it tells you combat, the combat card can only be played for combat purposes, or if there is a weapons or shield test, you can use the combat also, because most of the combat cards are shields or weapons upgrade or boosts. If a card, like an ops card, says that you can play this card as an action, then obviously we will require you to spend an action, and that would count towards your 3 actions that you have. Okay. So that's pretty straightforward. The interrupt, some ops card tells you interrupt. You can pretty much play them anytime. Of course, not during combat, never, but anytime during the game. Even if it's not your turn, and even if it's an encounter, you can use it, and it tells you how to use it, what it does for you. That's what the interrupt does. Some cards tells you when or what requirements. For example, this card says you can play it in combat, but it also tells you as the target. So if you see that little parenthesis with a requirement, you have to pay attention to that. That's only when you can play it. And I think this goes pretty much over most of the rules or all of the rules. The mission rules are easy, and it simply means if you're able to finish a mission, then you will get the number of VP that it says on the bottom. So some mission has the word condition. It just means that if this condition is met, in this case your ships have explored 3 adjacent locations, then the mission is successful. So if you already have explored 3 adjacent locations and you just picked that card now, because it's a condition card and the condition is already met, you automatically score that card right away. But if you had a card like this one that says make a successful level 30 sensor test in a nebula, let's say you have done that in the past for either another mission, for an encounter card, or some other reason. It doesn't mean because you've done it in the past that now you can use that past level 30 sensor test to score this card. If it doesn't say condition, you have to do it again, even if you've done it again. So if a mission card tells you can you have to land an OA team on a planet and retrieve that OA team, and then you score 1 VP, even if you've done it before, it doesn't count. You have to redo it again. Okay, so in this case you have to, but this gives you 3 VP. Again, same thing with the secret mission. They just go upside down so people don't know what they are, but again they tell you what you need to do to score. You can, remember, during your turn, always remove a mission card and put a new one. You may want to remember that. This is a rule I usually forget, but it's an important one, because some of the mission really are stuff like this level 30, unless you're going to have 2 ships with eye level on the same space, it's going to be a tough one to do. Plus you have to find a nebula. And if you think it's going to take too much of your time, since you have only 1 action per ship per turn, you may want to discard it and see if there's an easy one. But this one gives you 3 VP, so you want to think about that. Also, if you destroy a ship, you get a VP. If you build a starbase, you get a VP. I think in the new rules, I'll have to double check, but I think in the new rules, you get a 2 VP for the first ship you destroy, if I'm correct. I mean, you can play it the way you want, but... And then you always get, once you do that, you get a +1 VP, or you turn it around as a +2. You put in your VP pile. This is where all your code goes. So if this mission was completed, you would put it here. If this mission was completed, put it here, and that adds to 4, 5, and so forth until you get to 10. And the first one to 10 obviously wins the game. I guess it pretty much that's the way you play the game. If you don't have any more missions, so if you went through your missions and your deck of mission is gone, so you've used all your mission that you picked in the beginning of the game during setup, then you simply pick any one of the 3 missions, or 4 missions if you play with the expansion. But you pick any one you want and then just add it to, so you always have 3 missions here. Okay, that's pretty much the idea. All right, so I think that covers it. Hopefully it wasn't too rushed. Again, I wanted to get this video out because it's gonna be too long since I've done it, and I didn't want to wait any further. But please leave comments if I made some mistakes on the rules, which I may have. I mean, I may have forgotten something, but I think I tried to cover it as much as I can. All right, hopefully that was good. Please leave comments. If I mess up anything, I try to put notes where I messed up so people can see that. And that was Star Trek the Fleet Captain rules overview. All right, take care, guys.